The desperate search for Nancy Guthrie has now entered day 6 as investigators work through scores of leads. And today's show co-anchor Savannah and her siblings are renewing pleas for help in finding their beloved mother. The family issued a new direct appeal last night to any possible captors.
This is Cameron Guthrie. I'm speaking for the Guthrie family. Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly. We need you to reach out, and we need a way to communicate with you so we can move forward. But first, we have to know that you have our mom. We want to talk to you, and we are waiting for contact.
That plea came from Savannah's brother, Cameron, and it comes after the first deadline, an apparent ransom note passed yesterday with the second deadline set for Monday. According to the FBI, the notes haven't been substantiated, and there's been no communication or proof of life, but investigators say they're taking them seriously. One person was arrested for a different message that turned out to be fake.
Authorities yesterday also providing a new timeline, new details of the disappearance. Blood found on the porch of Nancy's home belonged to her, and a front doorbell camera that was disconnected on the night of the apparent abduction is missing. Despite the difficulties and a lack of a suspect, the Pima County Sheriff is holding on to hope, saying he believes Nancy is still out there. The FBI is offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to Nancy's recovery or the arrest of anyone involved in her disappearance.
So, Willie, you know, the thing is, it's awfully frustrating, obviously, looking from the outside for those of us who love Savannah and care for her so much. And I know other people are saying, well, I don't understand why they're not communicating any more than they are. But if I were running an investigation, I wouldn't be communicating with the public. My responsibility is not to the press. It's to getting Nancy home. It's to the Guthrie family. So I get all of that. I do wonder and worry this far into it. Why there's no lines of communication? Why the Guthrie family saying, "Come on, we're here, talk to us." It seems that every day that goes by, more questions are raised than answered about what happened that night.
Yeah, if there's someone who has abducted Nancy Guthrie and wants something in exchange for her return, where is that person? Why haven't we heard from her? And as you say, there may be things that we don't know. Presumably, there are many things that we don't know. And we saw that at the press conference yesterday with the sheriff, but also the FBI that is now on the scene from the special agent who was there speaking. There was a lot he wasn't saying. So I think the hope is that there is something happening behind the scenes. But it appears in the public messages we've seen from Savannah and then last night from her brother Cameron that they are making an open appeal for communication, which would lead you to believe maybe they're not hearing from anyone now 5 days plus into this. Let's bring in former senior FBI official Christopher O'Leary. He served in the FBI's counterterrorism division and is the U.S. government's director of hostage recovery. Also now an MS Now national security and intelligence analyst. Thanks so much for being with us this morning. So just, again, to your trained ear, what did you hear at that press conference from the sheriff, but particularly from the special agent in charge there in Arizona of the FBI when he came out? Lots not said. Having been through cases like this, what did you hear?
Yeah, I think it's, you highlighted it. There's a lot not being said, and that's intentional. There's a delicate balance between informing the public and soliciting their assistance, because there's millions of eyes in the United States that can share leads with the FBI, which is desperately needed, but also not tipping your hand. So everything that's being said is being engineered by the Crisis Negotiation Unit, which is a specialized unit out of Quantico, Virginia. Unfortunately, they have a ton of experience at that. There are really kidnaps for ransom almost every week that they deal with, usually in places like Mexico, Central America, South America, across Africa. But they're used to these rapidly evolving crises and engaging with the captors. The one concerning thing is we don't have a line of communication established with the captors right now, and that needs to change, because you cannot negotiate this release, and certainly with the serious concerns about Mrs. Guthrie's advanced years, and medical conditions that have been stated. Those are things you want to get ahead of, and time is of the essence right now.
So, Christopher, without speculating too much about what may be going on here, I mean, just the facts that we have in front of us now over these 5+ days, the police, the sheriff's office says an apparent abduction, but we haven't heard from anybody from the alleged abductor in these days. When you start to put pieces together of things you know publicly and maybe people you've talked to behind the scenes, are you able to make any sense of what we're watching here?
Well, I think there's two things, some other outlets have alluded to. Maybe it's somebody close to Mrs. Guthrie, a family member, or a close associate. Those things should be pretty easy to rule out pretty quickly. Number one, they should be cooperative. If they're not, that's a tell. But if they are cooperative, what's their alibi? They should have been at home at 2 o'clock in the morning. Can their cell phone establish their presence in their home? Can their vehicle, which is also a geolocation device these days, can the FBI say that their vehicle was at their home? Can their spouse or their family members corroborate that? And are ring cams, their ring cams and ring cams in the area, able to say that they were at their home? So that could rule out a lot of potential, personal connections to Mrs. Guthrie. Then you look at the MO here. The doorbell camera was disabled, which shows or suggests a certain level of sophistication here from the captors. So who, in the history of kidnapped for ransom has that capability? Is it somebody that we think is local? Or what the concern is amongst some colleagues that I've talked to is with the proximity to the border, is this potentially, and not suggesting it is, but something investigators will look at, that she was potentially taken by a Mexican kidnapped for ransom organization who do this fairly routinely. And so the FBI being brought in here, number one, has the authorities to do this, both domestically across state lines, but internationally. And they also have the reach and the connections and the bandwidth to do it. So they are most certainly discussing things with intelligence partners and our Mexican counterparts as well.
Chris, you ran kidnap and operations and hostage rescue operations for the U.S. government. Do you have any doubt in your mind, given what you said about the cameras, given what we know about her, where she was at what various times, that this was an abduction? Are you starting from the certainty that Mrs. Guthrie was taken from that home, was kidnapped, or do you see any other possibilities?
I think that's where I would be leaning if I was inside the investigation. And I think that's where the agents on the ground are. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, 84-year-old grandmothers and mothers don't just disappear in the middle of the night. She wasn't abducted by aliens. There are indicators that somebody entered the home. She has blood there. Her medical condition didn't suggest that she had any dementia or a reduced level of consciousness. So it's just not like her. It doesn't fit her pattern of life. And the other thing is, did somebody have a personal grievance against her? There's nothing to suggest that. She sounds like a wonderful woman who is beloved. So who would have a personal grievance against her? And I do think NBC Corporate Security, which is staffed by a bunch of former FBI and Secret Service, are working with the team on the ground to determine if Savannah had any previous threats or stalkers or anything, and they couldn't get to her, but are looking at Mrs. Guthrie as a target of opportunity.
But we're also not aware, at least investigators have not said that anything was taken from the house, like any sort of robbery there. So, Chris, drawing on your experience in this, if indeed there has not been any real contact from the kidnappers, it has been silence since this happened nearly a week ago. What could that tell you?
Well, it's not unusual, unfortunately. I mean, they're in control here, and they will do this on their time frame. So they might be in a position where they need to get to a safe place. They need to be comfortable with secure communications and very deliberate, because the FBI is looking to exploit everything that they do. The initial email of the ransom note, if it turns out to be authentic, the FBI is scrubbing all the metadata to try to determine, the origin of it. Was it run through any filters? Was it anonymized? Is there a language in there that could suggest that somebody is from this country, a certain region, a certain education level, or does this suggest maybe they're from somewhere else? So all those things are being ascertained. But the other parts of the investigation now, there's concern that there was no, vehicle traffic or foot traffic around the house. Well, you'll expand that search. This is during a period of darkness where there's very little activity on the streets. So you just look a little further out. Any vehicle on the road at 2 o'clock in the morning in the vicinity, you'll start pinpointing on and then start trying to determine who owns that vehicle. Is there something we should be concerned about? So all those things. And then normal intelligence, going after sources and questioning them. What do they know? People who are in these kidnap for ransom kind of circles. Is there anybody you have contact with?
Yeah, Mr. O'Leary, it's interesting. The thing that hasn't made sense to me from the beginning has been the fact that this is 2026. We have cameras everywhere. This doesn't seem to be like a smart, calculated move. Forget the immorality of it and how horrid it is. Because in America, this just doesn't really happen that much anymore because we do have cameras everywhere. But you just mentioned something about the possibility of Mexican cartels and how it does happen there all the time. And so is that for you? Is that a concern that possibly somebody who does this regularly to make money for their businesses may have been a Mexican cartel that came across the border and had an opportunity 50, 60 miles away? And maybe that's who we're dealing with here.
Yeah, it certainly is something that if I was still running hostage recovery, we would be looking at. Again, there's nothing that's been shared yet that indicates that, but just given the proximity and the MO of what's gone on here, it would certainly lead investigators to be looking in that direction. And the one thing I will add to that is, there is concern about Mrs. Guthrie's health and her medication. If this is a professional kidnap for ransom group, although it seems callous, you should take comfort in the fact that they deal with these things all the time. And as callous as it sounds, Mrs. Guthrie is currency to them, and they will want to keep her healthy so they can make the exchange. Most of these kidnaps for ransom end successfully. The money is paid, it's negotiated down, but often there's a successful resolution and she'll come back safely. So hopefully that's what we're seeing right now. So if it is a professional Mexican organization that's doing this, in a certain way that's almost comforting because they do this regularly and they'll want to resolve it and get paid.
Yeah, it seems to me this is so horrifying and such a nightmare. But as we drag on to day 4 and day 5, and we know nothing about it, the great fear is that somebody did something really extraordinarily stupid and then panicked, and now this many days in, the situation is even worse. So again, a lot of things.
Please just say no questions asked.
Just not lining up right now, and so we'll see what happens. And of course, our prayers stay with Savannah and the family.
All day.
It's unspeakable. It's
Former senior FBI official, MS Now national security and intelligence analyst Christopher O'Leary.